Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Sellik the Thunder podcast. I'm your host, Ryan Fitzsimons, here for episode number 17. It's quite a weird one this weekend because we're in the midst of some ground-breaking news. We don't know when it's quite going to drop. I was hoping it was this morning, but who knows? It might be tomorrow, it might be Wednesday, it might be never. I mean, don't I get my hopes up too much? God knows. I'm joined by one of the regulars, Ryan McGinley, mate. How you doing? Nice to have you back on for, I think this may be your third consecutive week, am I right?
I know. I'm feeling like one of the regulars, I'm pretty good, just optimistic now. Hopefully the news breaks tomorrow.
Aye, and then down in the bottom of the screen, if you haven't noticed, there's some new faces. I'm glad to be joined by Beans. I'm glad to be joined by Fitzy. Both of the Fitz Been Happening podcast. Look, I'm going to drop a wee thing on the side of the screen so they know where to go. Look, during lockdown, but before we start talking about football, just so I could introduce you guys and so that the YouTube audience get a wee bit of a know-how of who you are. I wanted to talk a bit about your podcast, talk a bit about yourselves. During lockdown, this has become quickly one of my favourite podcasts. Honestly, the people you're having on, fascinating conversations. How you doing? Nice to have you on. How's the podcast game treating you? So I'll start with Fitzy or whoever kick us off. How are you enjoying life? Talking to a microphone.
This is when we just speak over each other and hope for the best.
What you saying? No.
No, it's good. Beans had spoke about doing it before, and we didn't really have any grand plans. So we done a few episodes late last year, specifically after Scotland qualified for the Euros. And then Beans had messaged me just after January. He was like, mate, do you want to do this properly? Do you want to actually put in some effort and try get some guests and try have some proper conversation and structure it so that he doesn't have to edit it for 9 hours? And it just kind of built for there. We just like talking to people and slagging each other in the midst of all that. So it's been good fun.
See, I think that's been one of the parts about lockdown that for as shite as this has been, been sitting in your house or rest. You've had some great chances, and the same as me, to talk to a lot of people, just have genuine conversation. And I mean, through like this, I never knew any use for talk's sake before this. I knew, some great pals and all the rest. It's been a quite a as I said, for the shite, it's been a good experience through it all.
There's been some great opportunities through it all. And if you like the sound of your own voice, somebody somewhere will like it as well. I'm 99% sure that the only people that listen that I know is like my mum, but that's fine.
I listen.
Well, you and my mum.
That's it. That's all you need. Beans, you're surprisingly not hungover on this call.
I know. I made an effort.
There's one person here hungover, and if you can tell by the voice, everybody, it's me. So you've turned up for the big occasion. This is the crossover event. You've been excited for this.
Mate, I think this is one that will go down in history, and I think probably in the next 10 years when we're sitting with our own multi-million-pound enterprise, I think we'll be talking about this on a beach in Dubai, popping a snus in, sipping a margarita, having a great wee time. But nah, mate, I'm looking forward to it. It's been a long time coming. I've been pestering you for ages to get a bit of your clout. So we're here, we're in.
I'm just hoping that the clout works. I'm hoping that you go off this when it's uploaded and start seeing the follows drop in for the podcast. So let's give you a chance to talk about Celtic and let's see if people still like you by the end of it. Let's go and start off the show. We'll start with yesterday, sorry. That's it, hungover. We'll go back to Saturday. Celtic 3, Falkirk 0. We're through to the next round of the Scottish Cup, and before we even talk about who we face in that next round, let's quickly talk about that game itself. Now, I did a live watch along on my channel and I sat and watched the game, gave my thoughts to the game, so I'll open up the floor to you guys so I'm not recycling anything that I've said. Ryan, since you stayed quiet for the last couple of minutes, I may as well speak to you first. What did you make of Celtic's win at the weekend in the Scottish Cup?
I thought it was quite slow to begin with. I know we were dominating the ball a lot, but it was quite slow. Leigh Griffiths looked about 2 years off the pace. But the second half was a lot better. I thought we were playing a lot quicker and we got some goals to show for it. So, I mean, we're into the next round, so I can't really complain. But it was just more of the same, really. We should have been more clinical. We get so many chances under Kennedy and we don't put them away. So it's a bit of a nightmare.
So, Fitzy, I'll come to you there. We're talking about the missed chances. There was so many of them in that first half. I think the stats at halftime were showing something like we had 20 attempts on goal. Falkirk had none, and we just couldn't convert. That seems to be the issue. Of course, that and the fact that we've not been able to defend for our lives this season. But going forward, there's no clinical side to us, is there?
we looked slick. Like, so some of the pass and play under John Kennedy is quite impressive, and it's fast, and we build momentum. But it just got to the final third, and Leigh Griffiths just didn't know what to do.
Aye.
He had a few chances went wide. He had a Stonewall penalty.
I would agree. I would agree with that.
The penalty one wound me up a wee bit, and that's why I'm trying not to go over the top on Leigh Griffiths. I put out a tweet saying he's finished, but maybe he's not. Maybe he'll be different under a new manager. But it just, like Brian says, he was just about 2 years off it. Mm-hmm. And if you're playing one up top, you need to be more clinical.
Yeah, so it was a kind of game for me, and I don't know, I'll come to you here, Beans, to talk about this. For me, it was like I seen the starting lineup come out, and I seen Griffiths up front, and automatically I thought to myself, "Oh, that's not what I wanted to see." If I want to see, I kind of wanted a Yeti or a Kamara, somebody like that, somebody who I feel like we've spent money on, we're meant to be developing. People who feel like are putting in the effort as well. Yet Griffiths, who has thrown away time after time chances in the team, he's back in. I don't know. For me, I just felt like team selection was a bit off, and that was reflected in the performance we got for Griffiths. Beans.
See if Scotland don't qualify for the Euros, we don't see Griffiths yesterday. I think that was just John Kennedy giving his pal a shot to get into the Scotland squad. He doesn't merit it. He's miles off it, as Ryan said. It was just, it was baffling. And the thing with the team selection that kind of gets me is that obviously we'll talk about the next round, and we've got another old firm to play as well, and we've got games that we want to see out, and there's players that are going to want to be playing for moves. There's going to be players that are going to be wanting to play to get into the team, and obviously you've got to rotate and you've got to give players their chance. But Ayeti, for me, had to start that game yesterday. He's been so sporadic. That's a game where he could go and get a couple of goals, really look, the player that he should be, and those are the games where he should be getting that chance. So the team selection was just yet again baffling. And I don't want to go too harsh on John Kennedy, because I know a lot of people don't want him to be part of the new regime, and I'm a bit indifferent on that. But
that's the same as me.
I think he's sticking to Lennon traits that weren't working and won't work. So it was a bit disappointing more than anything.
Do you have any thoughts on what's up, Fitzy? Oh, there you go. Aye.
No, well, I was going to say, did you think? I never thought of that it was a pals act to bring Griffiths in for the Euros. I never thought of it that way.
I see. That's I'll tell you what. I'll tell you what, that was the first
football
time.
Knowledge. That's why that's
hashtag Bean Squad.
Hashtag Bean Squad. But see, like, honestly, that's what I was going to say. I was like, I never thought it like that at all. And it's a very good point. Like, it never crossed my mind for a minute that Griffiths will be dying to go to the Euros. Of course, it will be. But that's a very reasonable explanation as to why he might get some more football in the next few games, and why we've seen him play the weekend, because the Euros are there for the taking. So, the striker situation at Scotland is one that is continuously open. We don't know who's going to go. You're talking about Nisbet, you're talking Shankland, all these players. So, that's a good point. And that kind of gives me the fear. Do you think that he'll get more games now, even though off the back of the performance that showed he might not quite be there? Do you think he'll still get more football?
I hope not.
No.
based on yesterday, I hope not. He's had a full season to work on his match sharpness and work on his fitness, and he's just so far off it. It's a shame, because this should have been a big season for him. This should have been one of the big ones. But I just don't think I don't know what's going on behind closed doors. But he's half the player he used to be.
I know, that's the point I made in the stream as well at the weekend. Is like, it's not that I want to come on and give him all sorts of hate and slander or whatever. It's not like it's like that. But from the evidence that we've been given this season on the pitch, he's simply shown that he's beyond it. His best days are gone. We're talking about moves to Aberdeen here. And that's the sort of team I think Griffiths now belongs at. He's not Celtic standard anymore, and that's not because I want it to be that way. It's not because I'm not dying to come on here and say that. It's just I've not had an opportunity this season to sit down and go, Griffiths is still that player.
Do you think he comes good under a different manager?
No, I think that's even beyond him. I see Ryan shaking his head in agreement with me. I think even if under Eddie Howe, if Eddie Howe does get the job, I don't see Eddie Howe coming in and revolutionised his game. The guy, what is it, Ryan? He's 30-year-old, isn't he? So 30
years old, turning 31 at the end of the year.
And
that's a great age, though. You're in your prime at that age, guys. Come on.
Don't try and big yourself up now, Fitzy, right? me and Ryan are still in our younger days. But I love how we've completely. So I put in the running order. I was like, oh, we'll talk about the Fall Cup game. And we'll talk about Griffiths and I love how we just went straight into. It was always going to happen. We just went straight into Griffiths.
It was obvious. It was obvious the way the game went, how off the pace he was.
Mhm.
I'll be honest, I was more annoyed that Brown was in the team than Griffiths.
Really?
I should be using him sparingly, to be honest.
You know, even
one
one
Aberdeen next season. I know he's a club legend and that, but he's going to be at Aberdeen next season. I think we should be blood and sorrow.
Do you know want Brown? No, I kind of agree with what you're saying in a sense, but do you know want Brown spearheading that Scottish Cup run so that he lifts the trophy upon his?
That's my thinking.
Is that your thinking? Aye.
I mean, that would be great. That he's not really done that a lot this season. I mean, he's had a couple of great games, but I don't think he's been outstanding or anything. Yeah,
it's a really it's a weird line to be standing on, because one side you've obviously got Brown, you've got to stick by him sort of thing, and then the other side you've got Sorrow, who's waiting in the wings to perhaps take his place next season. So do you start bleeding him in now, knowing officially that Brown will be going next season? I think that whole conversation just ties into the team selection at the weekend and how questionable it was. Because for me as well, and Beans, I'll let you kind of speak here, because you've been talking about Ryan Christie a lot on your Twitter. Aye. So at the weekend, I was quite baffled when I seen him Kennedy starting Rogic, Christie, and Turnbull. I don't think it turned out for the worst. I thought we were quite creative in the final third. We just didn't have the end product. But what did you? I'll let you speak about Christie and such for a minute. What did you make of how we played in that final third at the weekend?
Do you know, it was bizarre to go back to the team selection. That was a weird one where I was scratching my head wondering what the lineup was going to look like, what the thought process was behind it, because you want to stretch a park against a team that are going to sit and not, put 3 10s in there. It was almost counterintuitive to have one striker up top and then 3 10s behind them. But I thought Christie gets, and I wanted to talk about this because Christie gets a lot of stick, and there's a
You've got a wee glint in your eye talking about this.
There's that. And I know people think I just go full heel when I stick up for Christie and Forrest, but listen, he's been off the mark. He has been, but people use this argument for El Yunusi that we should be spending whatever money it costs because the stats are there, but the performances aren't there. El Yunusi has had a handful of games where he's really stood out and shown that price tag since he came in the door. Christie has had a great season. He's had moments where he's looked good. Yes, a lot of his shots go flying over the bar, but I'm going to be quite risky. Well, not risky, in fact, I'm going to say, I think if Eddie Howe comes in, Eddie Howe basically has a word with him, and his coaching and his tactics and his style of play will be good enough where it won't be a case of, let's move the ball around, Christie, drop off, get into space. As soon as you've got 5 yards, get the ball to Christie have a shot. Because if he does that and he does that, he's rushing shots, he's constantly shooting. If you're constantly shooting, he's not going to score 5 goals a game. He's going to miss them, and he misses them horrifically at times. And that will just come down to confidence. And it was quite funny how he ended up scoring, and that Falkirk admin's probably taking the week off. But I think Christie is a player who I want to see staying. I see people write him off and saying he needs to go. But if we're having Eddie Howe in and having a coach, I think he's an intelligent player. He's he's a strong player. He's obviously
very talented. We know that. We've seen it.
It's just very frustrating, but I don't think if you could pick a player to bring in under Neil Lennon or John Kennedy, Neil Lennon's style that's now adopted by John Kennedy, I don't think Ryan Christie's that player at all that you would want under them. But if you were to bring in a Ryan Christie player into an Eddie Howe team, you would 100% take it. So I think I was quite impressed with the overall movement and towards it. I know when the game's gone, it's a bit different, but as Ryan said, we started slow. It wasn't the best start, but we eventually there was some promising signs. It wasn't as if it was completely drab.
Yep.
What did you make of Christie after he scored? He looked raging.
I think that's him just kind of
obvious.
Exactly. I think that's him trying to say, like, look, I can still do it. Somehow, one way I'll do it.
It was a dead tidy finish at the near post.
It was really nice.
And then he's just raging. And then until he's seen Scott Brown.
I think he's seen the tweet, to be honest. I think it was after half time. He's obviously checked it.
Somebody showed him at half time.
That's right. Maybe Maybe they have. Maybe you might want to see this, mate. You might want to see this. I don't know. You sure you want to see this? You want to see this? And then they've showed them it, and that's why.
John Kennedy's halftime team talk is just him on Twitter, just seeing what's happening.
Just a big smart board up the wall, right? This is what they're all saying, scrolling through. There's Beans talking about you there, son. Look, he's got faith in you. But Fitzy, what do you like? Obviously, this is your partner in crime. Would you agree? Because I actually see a lot of what you're saying there, Beans. I very much agree with you. I think Christie's a player who, under Eddie Howe, can be developed to a level we could see him back at his best. And I feel like a lot of people might be basing their decisions off the fact that 50 shots a game go over the bar rather than watching what he does outside that. So, and I understand the frustration because I could tell the comment section right now are like, oh no, Christie has to go. You know what I mean? That's probably going to be in the comments just now. But Fitzy, what's your thoughts to your partner's opinion there?
I've got to echo what you said. I agree with him. I think he's a fantastic player. I think, not to go too off topic, but we live in this sort of environment where people love memes and all that sort of thing. So it's now became a joke that he misses all his shots and he's off the pace and all that sort of thing. But it was a brilliant goal from distance again. It was another game where he was energetic and he was all over the park. I made a point. There's a lot of people saying, why was he still being picked for Scotland? See the John McGinn overhead kick. Ryan Christie was at the edge of the box, that full passage of play, keeping the ball in play. Like, there's a lot of things that people miss because he misses a few shots. So I think he's a fantastic player who needs to be put in the right system. I think he's a wee bit disillusioned at Celtic because of how this season's went. So I think if you get him on side, he's an asset to the team.
Very good point. And finally, to kind of wrap up, I don't know if Ryan, if you've got anything you'd like to throw in about Christie.
Yeah, I think a lot of the fans also remember around about the same time, July, August time, when his dad came out and said that he wants to go to the Premier League. I think that stayed in the fans' head a lot as well. So fans will automatically see that as he wants to go, his heart's not in it. Mm-hmm. And I would say that I've been in that camp a wee bit because I'm one of his harshest critics. But I was a big fan of him under Rodgers. He was a great player under Rodgers. He single-handedly won us the League Cup, basically, with his performance against Hearts. And was that the semi-final at Murrayfield?
What a day, what a day.
Outside the box, screamer outside the box,
I lost a £9 cheeseburger that day.
Oh, that's hot. Here, I'll tell you
think about it.
I got a macaroni cheese. I know that's not right. Right at the football, I know about eating macaroni cheese, but they had a macaroni cheese stand outside the stadium.
And Dom will bring that back.
I got fried.
Dom's bringing that back.
I got fried onions on the top of it. Oh my heavens! It was absolutely
how continental.
It was incredible. I felt like a rugby fan. I was like, this is Murrayfield. All right, don't get us at Parky.
Did you have brown? You just had brown loafers on your feet, aye?
Oh, of course, aye. Very, very staunch of me. But I've been I found myself with Christie. I was never huge on Christie at all. When he started playing well, obviously, I couldn't sit back and say, he wasn't good. He was, of course, good. But I was never a Christie fan for a while. And now I'm in this weird position where I was doing it in the stream as well the weekend, where I'm like, defending him. I'm like, what's happened to me? I'm like, I've started what you guys are saying. I feel like it has been a very harsh at points, and I understand it's 50 times a game we're seeing these shots being put over the bar, and I find myself screaming at him, constantly. But there's so much, as you said, even wee things like staying on the edge of the box, keeping the passage of play alive. There's wee things that a lot of people aren't noticing about Christie that really do make him a really good player that we're just ignoring.
His decision making has been terrible this season, but so has 95% of the team.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know. This is where Beans, we always joke, but you do know a bit more of like the tactical side than me. It's the decision making has been terrible. I don't know if you can coach decision making. Those individual errors where he's shooting when he maybe should pass and all that sort of thing. It's a litany of poor decisions throughout the team.
I know I'm probably going to wake up to death threats on Twitter after this airs, but I think a lot of that comes down to the players around him. And I'm not saying by any stretch of imagination that Ryan Christie is miles ahead of everyone else in that team, but when you've got players around you that aren't performing, you've got players played out of position. Ryan Christie played out of position. I think when Turnbull's come in and Turnbull and Christie play together in transition, those two play at a frequency that the rest of the team are like, right, okay, we need to up our game here. Yeah. But I think there's a lot of times where Christie doesn't really have much else going on because we're sitting with one striker, we're really compact, we're not stretching the other team. There's probably not a great deal to do other than see if he can wrap one in the top bin, which I'm not saying is the right option, but I think
he's probably frustrated.
a lot of it does probably come down to that, yeah.
But see, one of the things that's annoyed me for this season is we've not had any wingers, and Christie's a 10 who plays better with width. So see, as soon as you've got James Forrest on the left and a winger on the left, on the whatever you know what I mean, it'll make more sense. He'll have more to play with.
That's because I've been crying about that all season, about how the lack of wingers has kind of destroyed us. And a lot of it comes down to, I suppose, tactically, you know, we have at some points when, you know, we'll try and play wingers and then have ended up sticking players on the wings who aren't wingers. You know, tactically, it's been a bit of a mess as well. But when you have natural wingers that fit and available, as we'll come on to now with James Forrest, it makes a world of a difference. So we'll move on to that part of what kind of want to finish up with the weekend's performance. James Forrest back, start his first game in God knows how long. I don't know the exact figure, but he's back. He scored as well. Ryan, you were the one that kind of reminded me to throw this in, so I'll let you kick us off here. Forrest, we're looking forward to seeing him back in the starting lineup for the next few weeks. And how did you think he performed at the weekend?
It's quite funny because before Ryan Christie, Forrest was my sort of whipping boy. My dad said,
this is it, the whipping boy special.
Well, but we've really missed him this season. I mean, the numbers don't lie, and we miss his overall presence on the right-hand side as well. Even the fact, you've seen it when he's not been in the team, we can't function properly without Forrest. We're so used to having him in the team there, being a dependable part of the team, that when he's gone, we seem to be lost. So yeah, it was a good goal. It was a slight deflection on it, but he'll take it. And he looked buzzing when he scored, and it's good to see him back and firing.
Yep, so Beans and Fitz, I'll come to you here. Forrest back in the team. I thought in the first half he looked a little bit off. I think he was showing a wee bit of the match sharpness issue, the fact he hadn't been in the starting lineup. But as the game kind of went on, you could see the influence he had, and he was really expendable at the weekend. I've seen him, you know, a lot moving from left to right. He was playing on both wings. He was going through the middle when he needed to too. He does those things that when he comes back, you realise, well, we missed that.
I think Forrest is just like a bit, and I suppose it's not even just Forrest or Christie, it's kind of any players that perform to a level and then don't consistently perform at that level, they then just, you know, it's very recency bias, and there's not many players that could be out for that period of time, come back into the team and people are absolutely raging because they've not scored a hat-trick against Falkirk in the first 10 minutes. So I'm a huge Forrest fan, if it's not evident, but I think Forrest, that's what you get with Forrest, and that's really what we have missed this season, is somebody who we can start on the right, you know, we can move over to the left and they can have impact, or they can come into the middle. They can move about. They can, you know, Forrest he's clever enough. He's got enough natural ability, and I think we've really missed his width and what he brings to the team. But he's had maybe I don't know, less than 2 games total now in the last couple of months, or more than that. So we probably won't see him play to a decent level until the final couple of games of the season. No. But it's good to see him back, and we've definitely missed him. So it's great to see him.
Great to see him back as a player, but I do wonder whether things would have been different had we brought in wingers, because we've got no one else for the right wing. We've got no really MD for the left wing because we don't know what we're doing with Elyounoussi. So I'm very happy to see him as a player back. I think the team looks different with him in the team, but I just go back to that point of what would it have looked like had we already had wingers in that position, that we shouldn't have been missing him as much as we did.
Yeah, it's one of those ones who we had Marion Shved there, who really ended up loaning out.
He was supposed to be the one.
He was supposed to be the one. You know, I think for a couple of years now, since Roberts especially left the club, you know, we've been looking at that right-hand side. It's been very thin. It's always been very thin.
There's been a negligence in that position because we've relied too much on Forrest to do the business because he's not been injured for a couple of years. I remember under Dial, he was injured a lot, but under Rodgers, he was pretty much in there all the time. So we kind of just expected him to be there. And then when the worst does happen, he gets a long-term injury, we've got no one to replace him with, so we put a number 10 out wide.
Yeah.
And then they're surprised when he has a bad season.
Aye, true. That yeah, there you go. This is. I don't know what I'm going to title this episode yet, but there's a very strong case for making it, you know, the Ryan Christie defence episode or something. You know, there's been a very Christie.
Well, it is episode 17 actually.
Ryan. Oh, yeah. Didn't even notice that. 17. That's very fitting. Very well played, Beans. Well done. I feel like I need to offer you a permanent place in the show now, Beans. Well done. You can just yourself a place.
His ego's big enough.
Right. So that kind of wraps up the game at the weekend. We kind of spoke about the key performers and all the rest of it. I was going to touch on El Yunusi a little bit, but I'm cautious of time. All I'm going to quickly say on behalf of myself is sign him up somehow. Pay the money, get him there, but bring him in. So let's move on to the kind of talk of the week. Let's move on to the big rumour, the one that's hanging over everybody's head. It's just pending announcement. Apparently, Eddie Howe is ready to take the reins of the Celtic job. He's ready to lead us into next season, and we've finally made the decision on who the manager will be. He's ready to become Neil Lennon's successor, and I couldn't be more excited. Fitzy, let's come to you first. Eddie Howe, just take it away, mate. What are you thinking?
Did you see the John Kennedy interview? Was it before the game or after the game?
And he said,
can you tell us about, would you know about Eddie Howe? And he said nothing, but he said nothing literally, and he said everything. So I think he's definitely coming through the door. I'm excited. I think it's a manager of a high caliber. It's somebody that isn't a Celtic man. I really didn't want another, Roy Keane or somebody else that knows the city and all that other nonsense. I want somebody with fresh ideas. Great connections down in England, Championship and Premiership. He studied under Brendan Rodgers, and we all know how well he done. And he also, I imagine, would have spoken to Brendan Rodgers before going through the door. And Brendan Rodgers would have said, I think, something along the lines of, if they're still in the same position with the same setup where Peter Lawwell's pulling all the strings, don't go. Which I know that we'll maybe go into this further down the line, but I'm making massive assumptions here. But I'm fairly sure he'll have been given assurances that this is the way that Celtic's moving going forward. So it's kind of, it is the rebuild that we wanted, but it's not just throwing money at it; it's changing the way the club's set up. And Eddie Howe is I think part of that. So, and see, even if he uses us to get a job there in England, I don't even care. See if it gets us back in this proper setup like we were under Rodgers. I think it's a Rodgers-esque signing. Like I say, we know how that went.
That's it, Beans, isn't it? It's trying to get back to that standard, try to get to that level. Of course, we're now in a situation where the Rangers fans are crying out that we have to catch them and all the rest of it. Well, this is a move that certainly will put us back in a position where we can challenge for the league title, because the way you look at it is Eddie Howe's a guy, and as you said, Fitzy, I think you were very well. You put it very well in saying, he would have been given major assurances. Eddie Howe's a manager who's came out on television before and said, I'll go somewhere when the move is right and the setup's right, and I'm ready to get back into it. So Eddie Howe in this setup, it seems like it's kind of made. I don't want to get over ahead and make bold claims that we're automatically going back to winning trebles. And if I'm not saying that, but with a director of football being, with Eddie Howe coming in and this whole new setup, it kind of looks as though it's pointing only in the way of success.
It definitely does. I would much rather we, even, I'm not saying I don't want to win the league next year, but I'd much rather we go through the process next season for the longevity of success that it would bring, rather than bringing a Roy Keane in, throwing some short-term cash to fill some short-term holes in the team. It's not going to do much with, our most iconic captain in the last 40 years is stepping down. We've got big, massive bits that we need to fill in this team. And as Fitzy said, Eddie Howe has, out of his own, the reason he got into management is because he offered to go and scout a game that he was playing in, then did so well with the report. He's asked to go and spend time with Sarri. He's asked to go and spend time with Rodgers. So he's a student of the game. He's intelligent. He's got good connections. And I know it's not going to be popular to say it, but that's what Rangers have done really well with Gerrard. And I know Derek Ray's been talking about this a lot on his Twitter, talking about how Celtic need to hire somebody who, the same way they don't go and sign the finished article, they sign a player who they can bring in and then move on. And they will want to use Celtic as a stepping stone, and that's what Eddie Howe will want to do with Celtic. There's no doubt about it, but he will want to come in for the project. He will want to come in for the longevity of it. So I think it'll make an immediate impact. I've no doubt about that. It'll be much better than this season, and we'll actually want to go to games again. We'll actually want to watch games again instead of shying away from it. But I'm overly excited about it. I think what he brings in every aspect of the role, the tactics, the ability to bring names in, everything, top to bottom, it's just very exciting, isn't it?
We might retain some players as well. See, like we all speak about Chris Ayer and Odsonne Edouard. I think that's the sort of manager that could retain some of those players.
Aye, that's one point that I think I might have touched on in the last podcast. I was saying, like, for as much as we've spoke this season about Edouard and Ayer being surefire to leave, and I still think to an extent that is the probability of things. I think that probably will happen, but you know, there is a solid chance that Eddie Howe is a kind of the manager who can come in and say, look, listen, this is the plan, this is the sort of idea moving forward. We're going to try and challenge in Europe. We're going to get that. And they might go, you know what, I like this. I like the thought of working with this guy. This guy will enhance my career, so maybe I'll stay. But it's one of those ones, and it's kind of wishful thinking. But if you were to pick any manager to do that, to convince you guys to stay, I think you're picking Eddie Howe.
See, after the negativity of this season, I think we're allowed to be optimistic.
Exactly. I think we're allowed to speak. I think we've been waiting for something. But I couldn't be any more buzzing. So Ryan, I'll come to you here. Eddie Howe, you were on the Enzo Express for a long time. It's now time to part. Because I've been telling you for November, mate. Eddie Howe is the man. He's going to be the one in the door. He's got to be the one in the door, and it's now happening. So I'm jubilant. I don't need to speak. I prefer not to speak. I've said everything I need to. But you, sir, you're now having to join us on this journey.
I'm very happy to join you on the journey. I'll need to give up my ticket for the Enzo Express. I'll need to stay in the cupboard for another couple of years. You'll probably get a decent job somewhere else in the next couple of years anyway. No, the reason I was on the Enzo Express was because I didn't think Eddie Howe would come to us, I'll be honest. The more that you hear the stories coming out over the past week, you're like, aye, this makes sense. This is a good project for him. Aye. He's been out of work for a year waiting on a project, like a new start, and this one seems perfect for him. He must have been given assurances that he's going to be sort of the head guy or one of the head men in the club. And it's really exciting. I'm honestly buzzing. I've been watching videos of Eddie Howe all weekend, I'll be honest. Yep, I'm just so excited. I can't wait for when it's announced.
Have you seen that? Have you seen that mic'd up training session one? Oh, brilliant. Outstanding.
Have I seen it?
Oh, have you seen it? Have I seen it?
Saturday
this is a family show, Beans.
I've done more than seen it. No, but like just I know that's like you can't. It's like I've seen some amount, and this is this, but you know, on this show, I feel like we've done a really good job at balancing the whole trying to like debate with the Rangers fans and try to one up them and all the rest of it. I feel like we try our best not to. But it's like one of those ones. The Rangers fans have been having a right good kick with us. Like Eddie Howe, I feel like there's been a narrative wrote.
No arguments. No arguments whatsoever. They know it's a good appointment, and they've got the fear. They have got the fear. I
feel like it's one of the ones like, oh, Ryan, I can just picture that now. You're going up there with Tony before Tim's like, you've got banners up there. You're going to Tony for fourth Tim. Oh, mate, that's a steamed company to be in, to be fair. But it's like, there's this narrative being created now that Eddie Howe is a useless manager and he's wasted 130 million quid on flops and got relegated. Like, what? I don't understand. This is a guy who was a head coach at Bournemouth. He wasn't the head of recruitment. He didn't go out and spend 130 million pound in his own pocket. Like, where is this narrative coming from?
I tweeted last night that if it was Eddie Howe that came in after Pedro Caixinha, Rangers fans would have been creaming themselves over the fact that Eddie Howe going to Rangers.
Aye.
It's just because he's going to Celtic that they're talking him down. Obviously, I know you do that if it's a rival team, but even then, it's not that credible. He's a good manager. Just go on with it.
Were you going to add in something there, Fitzy? I feel you were going to speak before Ryan.
Me and Beans are not the same guy.
Oh, you're not the same guy, aye. Oh.
And you go, Beans.
I was going to...
For as bald as Beans is getting.
No, it's... You know, I'm raging you've got me on here the day before I got a haircut, by the way, but I was going to say that with Howe coming in, he was voted the Football League Manager of the Decade.
Yep.
That doesn't happen with the 70-odd teams that are in the Football League. That doesn't happen by chance. There's a lot of good managers that have been in there, and it's not just because he spent... There's a lot of managers that spend a lot of time there that go up, that go down, that go up, that go down. He's a great manager, so it's just it's all nonsense.
See that whole he spent 130 million to be relegated. Like, how much did Gerrard spend to be the longest serving manager not to win a top flight trophy at Rangers? Do you know, like, you need to take it all in context. He spent 130 million, which isn't actually that much in the Premiership. So it's just all this. It's all this tit for tat nonsense. You know, we could sign Lionel Messi and they'd go, he's a dud. Do you know, it's
done.
What happens.
He's 34.
It's Farmers League and all that. But like you say, there's no credibility in any of it. It is just trying to convince themselves that it's not a great signing. But if he comes in, it's phenomenal.
And that is the exciting part now. We just wait for that announcement. There's been people sharing photos and, oh, here's a Mercedes driving up the city, like that. You hear everything and you're just like, I want it done. I want it over the line. But now is the important conversation. Here's the part that I feel like we can talk about most, because Ryan, we've already planned kind of behind closed doors that we'll have a sort of special episode when the announcement is made. So we'll talk about maybe Eddie Howe's future a lot more in that. But here's the point that really should be spoken about now, and this might divide opinions. Maybe not so much here, but definitely in the comment section. When does he take charge in your eyes? We now know we're playing Rangers twice over the next few weeks. We've got them in the Cup, we've got them in the league. Does Eddie Howe start tomorrow if the announcement is made, start this week, whenever, or do we wait until the end of the season? I see you shaking your head, Ryan, so I'll start with you. We've spoken about this personally. You know my opinion, so I'll let you kind of kick off because I'm in agreement with you.
I think it's got to be June. I think you announce him tomorrow and then just leave that in the background as a sort of like intimidation tactic. He's coming. Why bring him in just now? And then what if we get beat by Rangers like in a couple of weeks with him in charge? That doesn't look good. It loses a bit of momentum. It becomes a bit of a joke figure for the Rangers fans. I don't want that at all. I want him to come in with a clean slate. This isn't his mess to inherit just yet. It should be June that he comes in and he gets this sorted. But he can do as much work as he can behind the scenes, sort of eyeing up the players and getting the sort of talent that he wants or the recruitment that he wants in the background. But I think it should be June. I think Kennedy should guide us until the end of the season.
Would you guys down the bottom agree there, Fitzy, Beans? Do you think it should be an end of the season job? A lot of people saying that he should now come in and kind of start making his kind of work happen and all the rest of it.
The reason you bring in a new manager, one of the biggest benefits you get is that boost that the players start playing better just because it's a new manager. But like Ryan says, if you announce him now, the players will naturally know they've got a place to fight for, or they'll know that they want to leave anyway, so that they'll just continue being terrible. So, you kind of weed them out. So see the players that want to stay on, they will naturally start playing better in the hopes of getting a position in the new season. And also, again, like Ryan says, it's not Eddie Howe's mess to fix. So if he comes in and wins the Scottish Cup, it's magic, but it's not that we don't care, but it's not quite as big as it could have been.
Yep.
Whereas if he starts next season, he starts afresh. When it comes to next season, that's when we've hopefully got the director of football in place and the new chief executive in place. It's this fresh start that we all want. So I think if you announce him now, you'll get the boost that you were going to get anyway, but with no negatives.
Exactly. That's it. And that's a fear, Beans. The fact that, if he did start, you've got two derbies, just a mess there. And then you start getting those sort of, especially I think in the older support, they'd be like, no, I've never liked him from the start. You know what I mean? That kind of attitude starts to come out.
I'm glad you went to Beans with that question as the older supporters.
Are you going to start doubting them?
No, do you know, the only argument in my head I could have ever suggested that he needs to start straight away would have been, I really want Scott Brown to get the send-off of lifting the Scottish Cup in May. That's the only thing that I really see that could be the only positive over the next couple of months.
Yep.
However, you can't allow sentiment to get in the way of a good plan. And as Ryan's pointed out, as Fitzy's pointed out, as yourself has pointed out, there's too many benefits, or there's too many things that could take away momentum by doing that. And I think by having him starting in the summer, you're going to have players that are going to be playing to take a place, or players who are going to be playing for a move. If Ryan Christie wants to move down to England and he's had a poor season, he now knows, right, okay, or it gives players the opportunity to chat to the manager, Olivier Ntcham, who's upside down behind you. He could then, he could be chatting to Eddie Howe and thinking like, right, I'm at Marseille now, they don't fancy me. What do you think? Because I'd imagine Eddie Howe would probably take a look at Ntcham and think, there's a player in there, I could get the best out of me to suit my system. So
yeah.
I don't think Eddie Howe's got any immediate plans. I don't think Eddie Howe would come in and see. I just don't think there'd be any major benefit to him coming in the door right now.
The risks outweigh the potential positives.
If the result of that Scottish Cup final isn't really going to mean anything in September when when we're looking at European qualification, when we're getting the new season underway and whatever. So I think it's got to be June for me.
I just noticed on your shirt there, Ryan, when you fixed it, that you've got Pablo Escobar staring right in their eyes. Very nice.
I know.
Very nice.
I know.
I enjoyed that. I don't know. I've just went completely off topic because I just seen Pablo Escobar's dark eyes staring into my soul. I couldn't ignore that.
I'm looking forward to Eddie Howe making Bolingoli play like prime Jordi Alba.
Do you think he'll keep Bolingoli around?
He's got to.
100%.
Really?
100%.
Wow.
Great player. He was chased out for the right reasons, but since then, the full of Scottish football's hypocrites, so bring him back in.
Well, we can't really speak that way. We put him on punt, didn't we, in the tier list? I think we shoved him in punt.
I'm happy to change my mind. I mean, I think he's a cool guy. I'd love to see that redemption story.
I would love us just to
Ole and Encham.
I would love us to rip off the announcement video for him coming back that Istanbul done, because I loved the song about we bully and bumbo. I loved that. I would love us just to like steal that completely. Exactly.
I can imagine him now walking back into training and all the Celtic players look at him like, oh, look at this fucking idiot. And he's like, mate, you all went to Dubai. What are you talking about?
Exactly.
I feel like exactly. So for as much as they can all turn around and go, you fucked us last year, he could just turn around and go, shut up. You know, easy.
Literally everybody in Scottish football is falling foul of these COVID rules at some point. So
I know.
Anyone who
Bolingoli went to get his hole, they just went to go and have a margarita in the sunshine.
Okay for summer.
I don't know, a margarita in the sunshine sounds good right about now.
He was a complete scapegoat. Griffiths should have went out on loan as well then.
Mind Griffiths was having a house party. But it just gets swept under.
Did anything even come of that? Was there any like SFA investigation?
His TikTok get taken down, I think, so that was maybe the biggest positive.
He's too good a talent to be punished. Apparently, that's the phrase that's used on the other side of it.
Too much potential.
Can't hurt one of their biggest stars, you know.
You've
got to think of the Euros.
So we're waiting for Eddie Howe, and I think we can all say we're very excited at the prospect.
I'm waiting for Eddie Howe to come in and for the Green Brigade to make a song, because some of the ones that people have come up with are an absolute nonsense. So I'm looking forward to the real song guys making the songs.
See, we were talking about just before we started recording again, the video, the guy in the living room. That was one. What was the tune he was singing again for that?
I don't remember, but could you imagine it's the first game of the season, it's a late kickoff, it's dark, and then all of a sudden the disco lights, Fraser Forster style, bang in the middle of the pitch, and it's just that giving it full Eddie Howe.
Eddie Howe.
That's what he was singing. And then we've got the Bella Ciao version as well. And we need the actual song makers to make us the song. Step up.
No people let me on Twitter.
I would even take like a rip off of the Brendan Rodgers song, like just change his name and get Eddie Howe in there. I love that. You know, I like a good old hymn. Do you know what upset me the most of my full time supporting Celtic is the Ronnie Dyler song at Christmas was just ripped off and became Brendan Rodgers. That's right. Aye.
Ronnie Dyler didn't die for this.
See Eddie Howe. Eddie Howe's massively obsessed with the band Aha, so there needs to be something incorporated with that.
I read that.
You have done a deep dive.
I seen that as well, Ryan. Don't worry, I've dived as deep as you. I seen he's a massive fan of like 80s electric music, stuff like Aha and that. You know, let's get. I mean, imagine like 60,000 Celtic fans trying to hit the high note and take on me. That's what we have to do. Just the stadium.
See, as long as Eddie Howe is not a fan of ABBA, I'm fine.
Oh, here we go. Here we go.
Moving on. What's next on the line?
What's next on the line? Well, ABBA. It's ABBA.
Aye.
There we go.
Guys, I need to go.
We've actually only got one more thing to talk about before we get to the Twitter questions, as per usual. And it is Dominic Mackay. The Daily Record came out last night with an exclusive reporting that he might start tomorrow, which kind of coincides with a major announcement. So Ryan, what did you make of the article when you had a read? Do you think that it's the right idea to get Mackay into that role? I think there is such a difference in getting Howe starting and getting him starting, because Mackay's role is starting is I think needs to start as early as possible, if you get me.
I think they've had a look at the calendar at the Champions League qualifiers and seen how close it is, and they've been like,
oh my god, 100 days, isn't it?
Aye, it's like 105 or something like that, because we're in the second round.
Oh, fucking
just reminds me of that reminds me of that Super Nanny clip when she says, "You guys are in a crisis, I'm on my way." That's like Dominic Mackay needs to. It's the bare minimum. He needs to come in just now, because even then it's still not enough time to get a full rebuild going. But I mean, I'm glad that he's coming in early. hopefully that means Eddie Howe comes with him. Hopefully they're both holding the scarf.
Yep, that's what you want to see, yeah. Just the two of them, and then maybe the announcement.
Socially distanced, of course.
Oh, yes, of course, aye. Each end of the scarf that will be held, as much distance as possible. Like 10
one of those massive scarves you always
one of those 2 meter scarves.
Aye, get one of them.
There's always somebody that has a scarf that like 4 people are holding. Like, who arranges this?
I liked it.
Who's more knit this?
See when Rodgers was announced, and the guy substituted a scarf for his own child. And he's
holding up his baby.
Up the way in the air.
I saw that with a bottle of bucky.
I like that one.
We'll just get Howe and Mackay holding up somebody's just escaped child at the weekend, just bang, put it up in the air. But I'll come to you here, Fitzy. Mackay coming in, it seems like quite an important step when we look at how close things are now rolling up on us. We've got the Champions League qualifiers there, we've got the transfer window opening at some point, and then a managerial and director of football announcement has to be made. So Mackay's appointment becomes a priority now.
Aye, it has to be. It made no sense to me that we announced him and then it was like a 9-month lead-in time, because how on earth is he supposed to influence anything when he's not even here? And Peter Lawwell is like, how do you even hand over properly if Peter Lawwell's away? So the full thing was just surreal with me. So, and I get why the Scottish Rugby kept a hold of him for as long as possible, but I'm glad it seems to have been expedited, because as soon as we get him in, that is the start of the rebuild, and that's when we see Eddie Howe, and that's is it Hammond's away as well? So is he going to get a director of football or something for recruitment? So it all has to happen now rather than in June.
Because Beans, it felt quite pointless that Peter Law apparently. So Dermot Desmond released that mad statement about when the manager will be here, and he said, Peter Law is part of it. I'm like, but why is Peter Law part of any decision when he's not going to be here? He has thoughts now. For as much as he's been here at the club and he's served the club and he's done a reasonably good job at running the club as well, for as much know-how as he has, it doesn't really matter going forward when he's not here. So, that part of it was really questionable.
I think that's just stroking the ego of a legacy, to be fair, mate. I think that's very much Dermot Desmond doing his pal a favour in saying that, see, when this does become a successful era going forward, just remember it was Peter Lawwell who got, Dominic Mackay in the door, and it was him who had a hand in hiring Eddie Howe. That's all that is to me. I think that Dominic Mackay's probably already started, although he's had his Scotland duties with the rugby team. He's probably he's probably been looking about and knows what he's looking for. And I would be very surprised if he's not been making phone calls regarding director of football, and it's roles that he's aware of. They have him in the rugby world. He knows exactly what he's looking for. He's I'd imagine things are probably very well lined up already. It is just purely a fact of timing, because there is absolutely no point. You just want this season. As soon as this season is officially done, then that's when you can really move on. But if you're trying to bring things in now, there's no real benefit to it. So I think the damage will be done, but and I think he'll have his house in order. And it's exciting because, even just the mention of his name and Lawwell being away, it does feel like a fresh start. So, I'm really looking forward to the double announcement that's pending, I'd imagine, this week.
Oh, it's only a matter of time now. We're less than 24 hours away from either extreme joy or extreme. It's such a weird kind of pendulum of thoughts and emotions. We could be either side.
Disappointing happy birthday tweet ever tomorrow, by the way.
Oh, whose birthday is it tomorrow?
Don't know.
Oh, Christ.
I'll make something up, like happy birthday to the first pie stand at Celtic Park.
Happy birthday to the vegan kiosk at Celtic Park. Which is
love if they done that, but they put like a cherry in the background just as like a tease.
Oh, that'd be nice.
That'd be quite smart.
I hope we do something good like that, because one of the social media guys is away as well. I hope that whoever comes in, I hope they do something similar to that. I know I did troll a wee bit by going through the Celtic timeline.
I seen that.
Your tweet started with Howe, but I think there were probably, whoever's seen that was like, oh, would this guy shut up? But I hope there's something quite decent about that. See if it's just a tweet comes out on a Monday morning. I'll be buzzing, but I'd like a dramatic Adam Lynch style video that's like 4 minutes.
I've still to make my levitating. I said I was going to make a levitating compilation with Dua Lipa singing in the background. I think that's the best way to introduce me to the club. We could get us four on board. Just give us a phone call, Sellik, man. We'll come up with something good. We'll get something going.
even if it was like Edward with like a lemon and then he puts it down and eats a cherry instead.
Aye, something like that. You know, I just
That,
want
along with a
creativity.
contract renewal, would be amazing.
Aye, that's smart, Ryan. Well done, mate. You're getting a wage rise, mate. Well done. We'll move on then to the final segment of the show. I think we're all just to end off that. Well, not the final segment. There's a couple of segments left to go, but we kind of, I think we're all in agreement here that we can say we really want Dominic Mackay to start as soon as possible. And that article couldn't be more welcomed by the Celtic support when reading last night. So it's time for the Twitter questions. I was talking about this to Ryan just before I used to join the call. Well, I was about to, and I think then Beans did join. I can't wait to get like one of these things that I can press a button and it makes like a noise for each segment, like the radio. So it'll be like, when we get to a quiz, I'm going to start calling the quiz that if you know your history, like, and it's going to start. They'll be like,
nice.
I like that.
Come up
You should just record your own voice, record them yourself, like your own wee.
Aye, that's it. We sound bites, you know, and it'll be like, you know, before you know it, go radio like that. Here's one on, pod. So anyway, let's move on to the Twitter questions segment of the show. I put out a tweet yesterday saying that we'd have the esteemed company of Beans and Fitzy, and the comment section has welcomed that. So let's start off with a question from Aaron here, which a question is really fitting to the Howe conversation and something we didn't touch on, in fact, which I'd like to bring up now. He said thoughts on Howe bringing up players from Bournemouth, and of course there was rumours going around that if Eddie Howe is coming up, he'd like to bring Stevie Cook, his former Bournemouth captain, with him. Ryan, I'll start with you, mate. What do you make of that? I am certainly not grudged if he thinks the recruitment is necessary in bringing certain players here.
Yeah, if he's bringing in players that know how works, in terms of, I know it's difficult. I'm here all day. But if he's bringing up people that he knows work in that system and work in the way that Eddie Howe operates, then I'm all for that. I think we should be going for Josh King, especially because he's out of contract in the summer.
Yep.
From Everton. He moved there on a short-term deal to the end of the season. He'll be a free transfer. I think that makes sense because he's, what age is he? 29. He's played down there for a number of years and he bangs in the goals. So I think that'd be a great move. But I think there's a few Bournemouth players that would look good in the Celtic team. I don't know if we'll be priced out of a move for David Brooks, but I mean, we'll see what happens. But I'd like to see his recruitment. I'd like to see him scout other players from the Championship and maybe the lower end of the Premiership, not just at Bournemouth.
Yeah, I definitely wasn't just googling the Bournemouth team there.
Let's have a look at who plays right back. That'll do. That'll do. What about you guys? What do you think about the potential recruitment of former Bournemouth players such as Steve?
I think I would probably look at it wider than just Bournemouth players. I think Eddie Howe will have made contacts, and there'll be players that he'll have dealt with in passing, players that have been in Bournemouth and left Bournemouth. I think his connections just in England itself will be really beneficial, and I do think that there will be players that he will be able to show Celtic as, come here for a few years and then springboard yourself to the Premiership. So I think more than just Bournemouth, although there are a few players in there that I'd be quite interested in, I think more than just Bournemouth, I think there's the potential for, again, like Ryan says, like lower-end Premiership and Championship players.
Yeah, and he's of course been around the game for quite a while now. For as much as a young manager, he's been doing things for 5-10 years almost. In terms of coaching, he'll know his eye around a good player. I think we don't have to worry too much on how he kind of adds into the recruitment process. Of course, let's not get it mixed that he will be head coach. There's a director of football who'll be there to do a lot of the recruitment, but he will certainly give a good input. I think we can trust that, Beans. I'm sure his know-how of the game, his no HOWE, his know-how of the game, it has to be trusted.
Well, I would say so, and I'm going to make a prediction here that the only transfer that Brendan Rodgers has sanctioned to Glasgow was King going on loan to Rangers. I'm going to suggest that there's probably going to be a pathway that might open up there in the future, just given the relationship they have. I think a player like Benkovic, not that I'm saying let's move on for the past players and the pals, but a player like Benkovic would probably be a lot more attainable for us now, given the fact that relationship does exist. And of course, I'm sure Rodgers had some relationship, but I think given how he left the club and whatnot, but it's not just as simple as Rodgers. I think, as you have all said, I think a lot of the players that are in the Championship or the Premier League in the bottom half, not as much as Eddie Howe knows them, but they'll know Eddie Howe and they'll want to play for Eddie Howe. That's a team that now they know will be playing good football, playing in Europe, going for trophies. They know there's a change of guard. They know everything that's going on. So, and they're underdogs as well. So it's not this pressure that they need to go and win everything. Well, of course they'll always need to win the game, but it's not the exact pressure that they've probably seen. So I think overall the ability to draw players in is probably going to be what's going to be a big difference for us this summer.
I think teams down south are going to be more inclined to send players up to Eddie Howe than they would Neil Lennon. I think he's just so much more attractive for these
In
managers.
every sense of that word.
Absolutely.
Physically, everything. You know, you are looking at a specimen of a man here.
Yeah, I think it's good for the profile of Celtic that a manager like Eddie Howe will be at the helm. I think players will be more inclined to join Celtic now because Eddie Howe develops players. He doesn't really develop youth players as such. He didn't really do that at Bournemouth, but he developed players that he brought in as well. Because you look at players like Nathan Ake, who came in, he was on loan from Chelsea. He made him into a hell of a defender. Now he's playing for Man City.
Playing's a stretch. He's not really playing, is he? But
he's long term. But he's a good player.
Got that move. Very good player. And he spoke very highly of Howe too, so it just kind of shows you.
That was encouraging what he said as well, that he has a dark side to him as well.
Exactly. You kind of need that in a manager, don't you? I mean, you look at Pep Guardiola, how much success he's had. Doesn't strike he's the kind of guy who would lose his marbles, and then that documentary came out and you're like, wow, like...
cracks,
Guy can go hard, and it helps. It works on players. You need to be harsh, and especially in the modern game where sort of social media has a big part of it. People are constantly building an ego. To have a manager who's going to take you back down to earth is really important. And I know that sounds like one of the arguments to bring Roy Keane into the club, but it certainly does have a place.
It's all about measuring that.
Yep, that's right.
See the thing with Howe as well is, see if you were Neil Lennon and you were going to Reading. The Reading press would find so many negative stories about Neil Lennon. I dare say that the Scottish media will have tried to find negative stories about Eddie Howe, and all they've managed to do is find a poor opinion by Chris Commons. Yep. So, like, it's not as if he's coming with these stories of, you know, being unprofessional or being this, that, and other. Like, if one set of media can find negative press on somebody, it's the Scottish media, and they don't appear to have found anything. Touch wood, I hope he doesn't come out as like a wank in some way.
I know, but we've avoided it so far. Let's keep it going. A bit of fun here. James is asking. I feel like we need to just throw it in because I listen to your podcast, guys, and I know that he's like a bit of fun on there. So very quickly, Shag, Marry, Kill, Neil Lennon, Peter Lawwell, Dermot Desmond.
Oh, I'm going to. Who was it again? Lennon, Desmond, Lawwell.
Aye.
Going to marry Desmond for his money.
Aye, smart.
Smart.
I
reckon Lennon's got a wee quick arse, by the way. I'd probably shag him.
And I bet Lawwell makes a good breakfast.
You need to kill Lawwell.
I'd be
kill Lawwell.
I'd be killing Lennon. I'd be shagging Pete. Big Pete. That'd be me.
Pete.
Aye, Big Pete. That's me.
Pete moves. There we go. Big Pistol Pete.
Pistol Pete.
God's sake, man. I
can't believe I came on here to try and be serious as well, and I'm talking about Neil Lennon having a fast arse, man. What a show.
That's a beauty.
Thoroughly disappointed.
Thoroughly disappointed. I can't even recover. It's completely took me off guard. On that note, another bit of fun here. I might ask this as well. Aaron asks, who would win the Celtic Royal Rumble? That's a good question. Who would win a Celtic Royal Rumble? Are we talking players? Well, if you've got players, Celtic Royal Rumble, anybody associated, I'm throwing my hat in the ring for Bobo Baldi. That's who's winning mine. Bobo Baldi's winning that Royal Rumble.
I'm going to give you Patrick Klimala as an outside shout.
Oh, aye.
He went away in the summer. Away in the summer and came back bald and dench.
Aye, exactly. A bit like yourself.
Come back bald and fat.
I'm Bobo Baldi's winning mine. What about you, Ryan? You've surely got a thought of
that. F. Juarez.
Oh,
he'll drug the whole ring, and then they'll all just fall out.
You talk about Neil Lennon again?
Beans, you got a shout?
I'm gonna go I was going to say Chris Ayer. It's a bit of an obvious choice, but I'm going to say Connor Hazard because he looks like he's just a bit of a psycho, and he likes every single bird's picture on Instagram. So he clearly does not care, and he clearly knows he can fight. So I'm going to go for Connor Hazard.
Fair.
Can I change my answer?
Go.
I can't look past Bio. I'll be honest.
Bio? Oh, that's a shame.
Bio, just feeder everybody. Aye.
Oh,
he's the one that when he was announced, they came on like the Undertaker.
Oh,
like just stood in the middle of the park, and that's where they done like the Undertaker, put the spotlights on. So that's it. He would appear like the Undertaker and just header everybody and win.
Aye, I could get behind that. I think that'll work.
Unanimous Laird, for gone Bio.
Aye, Lewis Laird, a good friend of the show and a good friend of the people. He has came and asked, how much is Beans willing to defend Ryan Christie? # Bean Squad.
Well, to the death, but he's 10 times a player that Scott Robertson will ever be, and that's where I'll leave that answer.
Oh God,
that's one for Lewis.
Lewis is somewhere in Glasgow. I've just heard a chair. It's a sudden standing up sound is happened somewhere. I don't know where.
It's a clash I want to see.
Aye,
Beans versus the Loan Shark.
Aye,
the Loan Shark.
Mad. Will Fergal Harkin still come in with Eddie Howe wanting his old Bournemouth technical director? So there was talk about, what was it, Richard Hughes, Ryan, and what do you think it was with Fergal Harkin?
I think it'll be both, I'll be honest. I think Richard Hughes will be the head of recruitment, but Fergal Harkin will be the director of football in a similar sort of way to the way Man United do their business. I know they had
Darren Fletcher and the old guy.
I think that's the way it's going to go.
How professional.
I think both sides will get the best of both worlds, because Eddie Howe will get what he wants and the Celtic board will get what they want. They'll meet in the middle.
Yep, that makes sense. What about you guys down there? Do you think Fergal Harkin will still come in the club?
With little to no knowledge about either people, I'm just going to echo what Ryan said and say, I agree.
Aye, it's one of these ones. I think through the entire process, when every time Fergal Harkin's names came up, I've been like, well, I don't know who he is. I'm not going to pretend that I'm like, oh, this is
he's from Man City and he's got a tremendous name. I'm fine with it.
Aye, he's got a name that appease a lot of folk. I think we can all agree in that. What about you, Beans?
Nah, I think we're going to see a lot of people coming in the door. Rodgers took pretty much every bit of backbone staff away with them, and it was replaced on a budget with pals. So now said pals are leaving, I can only imagine that there's going to be a complete overhaul. So I would agree with Ryan. It might not be specifically those two, but I definitely see room for a lot of bodies coming in.
We've got a regular question asker of the show, and I'd imagine listener, big John F. Kennedy. Yes, John F. Kennedy asks a question every week. Every week he's here for the
I've seen that guy, yeah.
he's fantastic. Boo. He's asked, from August to October, Barkas started 14 consecutive games. The idea he wasn't given a chance is a myth. Do you agree he has made 0 notable saves and shown no presence in front of goal? Bain not being good enough doesn't mean he is either. I feel like he's targeted me personally with this, because I just consecutive every week at consecutive shows I say I want Barkas, I need Barkas. I feel like he's personally targeted me here, and yes, I understand that he started 14 games. It didn't do much, but in those 14 games I feel like things may have been exaggerated. I don't know. I feel like he's not been managed correctly. I feel like he's been thrown in and around the team, and I just don't think he's had the chance to settle. And if that's a myth, that's a myth. But I just feel like he deserves more.
No, mate, I think you're spot on with that. And see this whole chat about how the fact that there was two changing rooms because of COVID and all that nonsense, which I don't think any other team is doing. How does a player come in, a Greek player come in and try and settle like that when he's spending half the time with half the team? James Forrest didn't even see any of the players for 6 months. Like it's been that pulled apart. It's not a environment for a player to come in, and for a goalkeeper especially, they need to come in, they need to be embedded, they need to hit the ground running, and he's not been given the chance to do that. He might be playing 14 games, but listen, we could have prime Iker Casillas in goal. If he's got Shane Duffy in front of him, he's probably not going to have the best cover. So Barkas for me, probably going to be one of the best goalkeepers of all time. So
love that.
If Barkas is good enough for Eddie Howe, then he's good enough for me, because Bournemouth were in for him.
That's right. It was apparently interested.
He's a symptom of a bad season. I go back to what I said earlier on, with poor decision making. He hasn't commanded his box well all season, but like Bean says, it's because he's not really built that relationship or that engagement with the defence in front of him, and the defence itself has been disjointed. So I think he's another piece that's just been off form. So see what happens under Eddie Howe. If we've got a bit more settled defence, he will naturally fit into that.
If he had the future king Stephen Welsh in front of him for the full season, I'd imagine he'd been fine. So if Welshie Remix was sitting in front of him most of the season with Ayer, I reckon he'd been absolutely fine, clean sheet one after another. So.
Ayer and his wee bra.
Aye, just his wee Scottish bra. Picked him up at Maryhill Shopping Centre. That's the one.
Right.
They're a bit like Michael Scott and Dwight Schrute, they two, aren't they? They've just got that kind of comical presence.
Fantastic. Right. Well, we've got one more question before. I know this call is about to come to an end, but I really need to get the blockbuster Fitzy and Beans quiz. I want to see who wins. So we're going to ask one more question before we end.
It will be Beans.
Spoiler. It will be no one. It'll be 0-0. Capital Boy 93. He's asked a question in regards to the cup draw. We've not touched on it at all, really. Very quickly. It's not quite his question, but I'm going to just kind of change it to suit. What did you make of that? Rangers in the next round. What was your reactions?
If we were going to keep going through, they were going to keep going through. We were going to play each other eventually. So it is what it is. I would have liked to have played them further down the line just to give this John Kennedy team time to settle, however long that's going to take. But it is what it is.
It is what it is. That's what it is, Rainer.
Aye, we might as well put them out now rather than later.
Oh,
love it.
Words of an encouraged man. I don't know about you. I'm fucking confident. See, as soon as it was drawn, I felt like that video all those years ago in the Bristol.
Be careful what you wish for.
Was it the Loudon or the Bristol? I was sitting there.
They're all celebrating
in the aisle. You know, I'm that guy now.
Aye, and how did that game go for them?
Oh,
aye,
exactly. That means we're.
I think given that the last two games we've played better. And we should have had a better result in both games. And those were two games in a league which was pretty much over. And I think the players knew it was over at that point. I think going into this game with Brown send-off, the mentality is completely different. Rangers have just, they've celebrated a title. So I reckon it completely changes the dynamics, which will only go in our favour. So I'm going to say 3-0 Celtic.
Oh, amazing. Right, we'll talk about that close at the time. Let's move on to the last segment. Start a new call for this, boys. It's time for Beans against Fitzy. Right then, quiz time. And as I said, I've had a graphic up the screen. It's the new name that I am now TMing. If you know your history, welcome. It's the quiz, and we're going to have Beans up against Fitzy. I have rushed last minute to find a suitable quiz. Ryan, don't worry, you don't have to sit in complete silence. If someone fails to answer the question, then you can step in and try and give us the right answer if you think you know it. So, what are you thinking? Are you feeling confident?
No,
absolutely not. This is going to be embarrassing.
Ryan, if you DM me the answers, I'll give you a $5 for each one, right?
I think Fitzy already asked earlier, didn't he? I'm sure you did. So it's a competition between who wants pay me more now. I'll let you bid away. Look, I think we've found in these quizzes that the knowledge on the spot starts to frighten you, doesn't it, Ryan? Like you've failed.
Between that and some of the quiz questions are a bit lopsided because you're asking people who scored in like a 1950s cup final and then who gets sent off 2 years ago.
It's like I've not been alive that long, mate. I'll just pass. I got Willie Fairley once. I got that, so I'm knowledgeable. I'm smart. Right, we'll get right into it, and I'll always do this. So let me know. Who do I pick here? Heads or tails? Fitzy. Heads or tails, mate?
I'll go heads, mate.
Heads. Right, well, here comes the special fifth guest of the show, Siri, to see what we get in heads or tails. So, Siri, heads or tails? Just takes a wee minute here. Right. It's heads, right? So there you go. Heads is the answer. Do you want to go first or second?
No, I'll let Beans go first on you go, sir.
To be fair, the first question's a relatively easy one.
I'll go first, mate.
My camera's gone off, by the way.
So here we go. Question number one is for Beans in the if you know your history penalty shootout. Celtic suffered a record European defeat in September 2016 against which club? And what was the score? September 2016.
PSG.
No,
So-
you're wrong.
Is it?
Aye,
Is
you're
it not the
wrong.
7-1 game?
No, it was the year before, a full 365 days before. Oh, you failed at the first third though.
Was it
Ryan, do you want
Nolan?
to step in here?
It was Barcelona at the Nou Camp.
Barcelona, that's right. Yep. And what was the score?
Was it 7-0?
7-0. That was it. 7-0 at the
Aye.
new camp.
That's the one that you always see UEFA tweeting videos from all the
Aye,
time.
That's
As
it.
soon as UEFA have got a compilation of anyone, it's
Yep.
somebody at Celtic getting nutmegged.
Owen O'Connell started that night, didn't he?
Did he?
started-
Aye.
Aye, because we played a back five. It was I think Gamboa started.
Gamboa played, I remember
Gamboa
that.
started, then it was a flat back three of I think maybe Lustig, Owen O'Connell, and Colo Toure.
That's right.
And then
Aye.
left back was Kieran Tierney. So that was the back five that played that night. Fuck me.
And where's he now? Who knows? Kieran
I
Tierney.
think he's
Do you remember
Oh.
Owen O'Connell's goal against Leicester?
Leicester, that was it, that
Yeah.
game. Aye, that's right. Oh,
Screamer.
Stunning, aye.
Right, well, Fitz, you have a chance to take the lead, mate. So here you go.
I'm
In
nervous.
terms of matches, who is Celtic's shortest serving manager? So rather than length of time, matches.
Mm,
I think.
I think I know this one, but I'm just going to say Tony Mowbray.
It's not
I don't
actually
think that-
Tony
I
Mowbray.
don't think
no.
that's- I
It's
don't think that's
0-0
right.
Still, do you have a guess, Ryan? Do you want a chance here?
Guessing it's John Barnes.
John Barnes, correct.
John Barnes.
John Barnes. is
See, I've
the
just
answer.
erased him from my memory because he's a knob.
At least Barnes could rap. That's all.
Well-
He managed for 29 games between
So-
June
so can Tony
1999.
So can Tony Mowbray, actually.
Oh, can he?
No.
I didn't imagine, so I can imagine Moza starting the rap on the Blackburn dugouts. So still 0-0. We're off to a right flyer here.
This is going to end in 0-0, by the way.
It's 0-0-2, by the way, because I've got both of them right.
Exactly.
Oh, so it is.
Ryan's sitting on the wings. Question number 3. This is for you, Beans. At the age of nearly 37, name the oldest player to make his Celtic debut.
Dion Dublin.
That's correct. Well done.
Oh.
Good answer.
I was ready.
mate.
I was
Good
ready to
answer.
steal that one.
Did you know
I
that's
actually
what-
thought Olivia
Davis.
Capo in my head for a second, but
Aye, there you go.
Capo,
Dion
that's-
Dublin. I would have guessed Freddie Lindbergh as well. That would have been my guess.
I would have said Presley.
Presley, shout as well.
I didn't even think of them. Thank God I didn't.
So Dion Dublin's correct. Well done. I would never have guessed
Yes.
Dion Dublin. I know he was that old. I knew he was old, but not that old. Which brings on to question number 4. In 1993, who replaced Liam Brady as manager, Fitzy?
So you were about 15 at that time, so
Really show his age.
No.
You don't know?
No.
You just passing on the question then?
I pass on the question.
Passing on the question. Oh, that means Beans will keep the lead. Ryan, do you have a guess?
David Hay.
No, it's not David Hay. Beans, what about you? Do you have a guess?
no, mate. No.
No, Louis McCarry. That's the answer. Louis McCarry,
Nah.
who replaced Liam Brady as manager.
For my time, mate, you know. For my
Aye.
time.
I don't
Obviously.
even want to ask this question. I'm going to substitute because it's far too fucking easy and it would be a crime to ask it. I'll tell you what it is in a minute. So instead, Beans, you're getting a different question.
Right.
Could you name the first ever Celtic manager who never played for the club? Question number 6 here. First ever Celtic manager who never played for the club. First one, mind. So it's no Brendan Rodgers.
The Doctor.
Nope. It was before that, and it tied in nicely with the last question. I thought you might have used your clue. It was Liam Brady. Liam Brady was the correct answer to that. Now, I had to substitute last minute a question in for that because the question that I could have asked otherwise, but then Ryan, I'm sorry, I didn't even come at you to get your guess there. Sorry, mate.
I got it wrong anyway, mate. Don't worry.
The question was Celtic Park is commonly referred to by 2 other names. What are they? Like
Markers.
That's the correct answer. I love how you both so in sync there. Gave Parkers.
Markers.
Depends what fans you ask as well.
Aye, so it was either
Rangers fans have a couple of names for it.
I don't even call it Celtic Park. I just call it Parkhead all the time. After Parkhead, you
Aye.
know. Right, okay. Fitzy, chance to equalise for you then, since obviously Bean's got that one rank. So question number 6. I can't ask you that either. I need to get another question. I'll just ask the question 7 here. Kenny Dalglish won 102 caps for Scotland, but how many of those caps did he win whilst playing for Celtic? You get an option here. I'm giving you two options. Was it A, 27, or was it B, 47?
27.
It was 47. It was 47. They still to get one right. People in the comments are going. Look at Beans is buzzing. Right, question number 7 then, and a chance to go 2-0 up, Beans. Celtic and Hibernian hold the record for the largest transfer fee between two Scottish clubs. Who was the player?
Scott Brown.
Scott Brown is correct. That's correct. I thought I was going to get it there.
You know how much...
I couldn't get Derek Riordan in my head. I was like,
Do you know how much I regret? Going second? Because the Dion Dublin one and the Scott Brown one I would have got.
I know.
Hashtag Bean Squad, we're here, we're live.
Well, here, this is an easy one. You can't get this wrong. And I'm taking it off the side, so complain about how easy it is if you want Beans, but Fitzy, you can't get this wrong. In 2001, which player won Europe's Golden Boot Award?
Would that be Henrik Larsson?
That would be Henrik Larsson. That's correct. So it's 2-1. It's 2-1. But here we go. It's your final question, Beans. So if you get this right, it's all over.
Pressure's on.
All over. This is a question that Kieran Auld would get an instant. I just know Kieran Auld would get this. It's the kind of question he knows, but it's an obscure one. Which chocolatey term, was used by the Scottish media to describe Celtic's reserve team of the late 1960s?
Oh, right.
Do you know it, Ryan? Do you know it?
Yep.
I know it.
Why do I not know this? Oh, fuck. I need to get this as well.
Beans has got a chance to win here.
You can't ask a fat guy about chocolate, man.
All he's doing is thinking about the chocolate.
Too many options. What one do I want now?
I don't know.
Oh, Ryan, you want to step in?
Quality Street Gang.
Quality Street Gang is correct. That's
the third one. Third one I would have got if I had went first.
This
is just the pressure.
This is a chance to bring it to you. This is a chance to bring it to the tiebreaker. That you've got to get it right, Fitzy, or Beans win, so it's all on the line. Celtic bought a player for £6 million in the summer of 2000, and then another player for the same sum in the following summer of 2001. Can you name both players?
Was it Chris Sutton and John Hartson?
Correct. That is the correct answer. So he's made
I don't think he was getting that there.
The last bit of the ball, which means we're on to the tiebreaker. And the way the tiebreaker
how much did we sign Raphael Scheidt for?
Oh, I think he was about £3.5-4 million, something around that, I think. So this is it. This is a tiebreaker. Whoever gets the question right first, who has fingers on the buzzer pretty much, whoever gets it right first walks away the winner of the Celtic the Fun.
I'm ready.
If you know your history quiz.
I've bottled this big time, man.
Right.
Hashtag Bean Squad.
Right, I've got to pick a question here. Oh,
this is tense, man.
I know, by the way.
Right. Which player
James
has
Forrest.
won the most international caps whilst playing for Celtic?
In all Celtic's history?
All of Celtic's history. Wasn't Scott Brown. Not Scott Brown.
Kenny Dalglish?
Nope, not Kenny Dalglish. So you're a guessing game all day.
Steve McManus. Craig Gordon.
No.
It's not even for Scotland, I don't think.
It's not even for Scotland, right?
Oh, it's not for Scotland,
It's
just in
not
general?
for Scotland, just in general. International caps whilst playing for
Henry
Celtic.
Larsson.
Nope.
Izagiri?
Nope, not Izagiri. Ryan, do you think you know it? Aye, you think you know it, Ryan?
No, hang on. I'm going to get this. Nakamura?
Nope, not Nakamura.
Nakamura.
I'll start edging in clues as the time goes by.
I know what clue you're going to use, I think.
Do you think so? I don't know what clue I was going to use. His first name was never his first name. He had a nickname. So it was.
Oh, aye.
That's the first clue. Nobody really called him by his actual name.
Bobo Baldi.
Nope. Right, second clue. 1990s is the era you're looking for. Mostly, primarily. I can't believe how long this is taking.
I know this is.
I thought this would have been my name. Like maybe after like 10
Aye.
seconds we'd get there.
Lubo.
No,
Nope, it's not Lubo.
the Canio,
I
no.
think it goes 80s into 90s, doesn't it, Ryan? If I'm
80s
right.
into 90s.
And
Look, it's
80s
a-
into 90s.
If it's the same guy we're thinking
Yep,
of.
it will be. It will be. You've got it. I know you've got it. But I think, let's see.
This is
Right.
embarrassing, Fitzy.
Next clue is, I'll give you, the next clue is, I said 90s primarily. God's sake. But more than fucking 80s, really. Aye, I've had a howler there, to be honest. 641 appearances for Celtic between the years of 1978 and 1996. There's your clue. Sorry for the primarily 90s. Don't know what I was thinking.
You've thrown me right after. Been sitting in his retro
Right.
tap as well.
And here,
I know, by the way, you think
aye.
I'd have fucking...
Exactly, that
I'd
was
have chat.
I think there's a clue you can throw in there, Ryan, that will make them get it straight away.
The clue is his second name can be used to describe something.
It definitely is the guy I'm thinking of.
I can't believe he's having to go this.
No.
Oh,
Mate,
this is mad.
we don't run a Celtic podcast.
Right.
We run a talking shite podcast.
Aye, true, aye.
If you name his position, they'll get it in two.
I know,
two
they'll get it in
seconds.
2 seconds. if I
You're
name his
saying that.
position.
You're saying that. We just wait till Beans is finished
The
Googling
country-
it.
Can I ask
Ah.
before your next clue?
Go.
Is he a goalkeeper?
Yes.
Is it Packy Bonner?
Packy Bonner.
No!
He stole it.
No, that's illegal.
The
That's
emotion.
actually illegal.
The emotion.
Hashtag Bean Squad.
No, that's actually illegal. I had it.
That is unbelievable. That is
Oh,
tremendous. Well done, Fitzy. You finally got there in the end. The winner of the Celtic Defenders, if you know your history quiz, is Fitzy. He's took the crown this
Thanks
week.
very much. Thanks,
Beans,
mate. Thanks.
you just
That's an
handed one.
asterisk next to that, mate.
That was
That's
a-
teen.
That was a Ryan Christie assist,
Like-
mate.
Null and void.
Like many
Aye.
titles this season, it's tainted.
Yes.
Yes, it doesn't count.
Have you ever seen the goal that Messi scored and Busquets kicks it from here to here? He kicks it absolutely nowhere, and
Aye.
Messi does all the work and scores the goal.
Aye.
It was the opposite way around there.
Oh, Beans, how do you feel, mate?
I feel absolutely devastated. This might be worse than losing 10 in a row. I don't think there's anything that could really pick me up from this, to be honest. So I
Sorry,
might
it's not-
actually
it's
I
not-
might
it's not
leave
like-
my podcast.
It's not like we're in regular contact where we record speaking to each other, so I won't bring it up.
I know I can't wait to hear this brought up in the next episode of the podcast.
I'll just edit it out. He doesn't do any work. I do the editing, so I'll just take it out.
Right, well, that brings us to the end of the show, lads. Thank you all for you, Ryan, Beans, Fitzy, everybody that's been involved in listening. Thank you as well. But, lads, before we go, I may as well do it one more time. Listen to the guys' podcast over on their social channels. You'll find the links everywhere. Go and follow them on Twitter. The links will be in the description below. Fit's Been Happening podcast. Big stuff ahead, lads. We're getting into the point now where lockdown has been lifted. I'm sure you are buzzing to get into this kind of prospect of recording actually with each other.
Yeah.
Oh, aye, buzzing about that. Aye.
Big plans ahead. Big plans ahead.
That was an
There are
open
big
goal
plans.
for Beans to shoot in there. He was like, fuck
Aye.
this. But listen, go and check out. Really good show. Some great guests. So make sure to check out some of the past episodes as well while you're there. Ryan, it's good being with you again, mate.
Thank you very much, mate. It's a pleasure as always.
A pleasure as always. Lads, share out the podcast and all the reasonable places, Facebook, Twitter, all the rest of it. Make sure to hit like and subscribe as well on the YouTube channel. We'll be back with you, hopefully, very soon after the pending announcement of Eddie Howe. We hope. Thanks for listening. See you all next
Cheers,
time.
lads.